All right, it looks like their ride is here. They're all gonna be getting on this school bus. They're all piling up and I am taking the video as they're getting on the school bus. There's more coming off of the bus, as you can see. I guess they're dropping some off to go shopping and get supplies. There they all go towards the Walmart, and the ones that have already done their shopping are getting on the bus. So this is something that is a major problem for our government today. I don't know why this is happening. I don't know why they're allowing these illegal immigrants to come here and giving them, government subsidies to go shopping and things like that to get supplies. And as you can see, none of them are small children. It's all grown men. There's a new group heading inside the Walmart to get supplies, and there's the ones that have already done their shopping and are getting on the school bus. This is a major issue for Americans. So I do have to get back to work right now, so I apologize that I cannot record this any longer. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Look, I've been recording this whole thing. They just pulled up and they had all these supplies and stuff, illegal immigrants, and now they dropped off a load of them and they're taking them back. So I'm posting it on the internet because we called our sheriff and the sheriff said that they're not allowing illegal immigrants here in North Carolina. I'm so upset right now. I'm really, really upset. Yeah, from here in America. It's bullshit, and I interviewed one of them on my cell phone. None of them speak English. Not one of them can speak English. They're new to America. They just got here. They're staying in China Grove, he said. He was like, I was trying to get it out of them, like where they were coming from and where they're going to, who was picking them up, because they've been here for like 20 minutes. I'm on my lunch break. I do have Facebook.
We were doing really well there until she said China Grove. But anyway, this did happen to us this summer. And what I'm going to do, I'm just going to give you a timeline of what we did and how we responded. And then we'll open it up to questions or let you say something. Do what? Yeah, well, I'm going to tell you how it evolved and how quickly it evolved. This was Sunday afternoon. We take our workers to shop every Sunday afternoon, and we pay them on pay cards. So they did have pay cards, and I know people thought they were EBT cards, but they're just, they're wages from the week. So they go in there and buy their groceries. So this happened on Sunday. So Monday about lunchtime, we got a call at our office and said, hey, there's a video out there. We think it might be your workers. You guys might want to take a look at it. So the office called my wife. She does the marketing, and she looked at it and called me. So we immediately had an officers meeting. Decided to call our public relations firm. We do have one in Salisbury, Miller Davis. And we all talked about it, had a conference call, and we said, well, at this time, we're not really identified. And we don't think it's going to be an issue, so let's just sit back and let's just wait. Okay, so we sat back and waited. Monday morning, we had 200 views. So we looked at it again. So we had another call and said, look, it's gaining a little bit of momentum. Let's develop a response, because we started getting comments on our Facebook page. Are these your workers? Are they illegal? Do you use legal workers? So we're like, okay, we're going to come up with a response. So we developed a response with our public relations firm. And again, we sat back and said, they really haven't identified us yet. So let's sit on it just a little bit longer. So Wednesday morning comes, over 20,000 hits. It's all over Facebook. So we release our response immediately. The good thing about Facebook is if you have a lot of followers, they are your champions. They really are. So once we put that out on Facebook and shared it with all of our followers and encouraged them to share that and send that out. So that was our front line of defense. Not long after that, we got a call from the governor's office. So Fred Steen, which is our local representative, is an aide to Governor McCrory. He called and said, hey, look, what's going on down there in China Grove? I mean, he was joking, but he was like, hey, we need to do something. So at that time, we went into high gear and we called the local TV station, the local newspapers. They came out. We did an interview that afternoon. It aired at 5 and 6 o'clock in Charlotte on WBTV. Of course, we got all those links, the links to that and the newspaper article. We put all that out on Facebook, on our website, tweeted it out. The next morning, the newspaper hit. And so we started getting a lot of positive editorials on the newspaper website that we could send out. So we started going on the offensive. We started sending out all the positive stories about how they're H-2A workers. They've been here for 20 years. They're all legal. We actually, I think it was Tuesday afternoon, we notified Walmart. We called Walmart. They are a good customer of ours, but we're a good customer of theirs. They like our workers. You know, we send 3 bus loads over there every Sunday, so they like our workers shopping there. So Walmart went on the offensive and put it on their local website. Their manager was very supportive. He had a meeting with his employees to let them know, what happened and to be on the lookout and start putting out positive information. So we also attacked it by that way. Thursday afternoon, it started dying down a little bit. And Thursday afternoon at 5:30, I got a call from the lady. She called the office. And we had actually attacked it enough that it had gotten back to her, and she was starting to get nervous about lawsuits because, that was talked about. If this hurt our business or hurt our company, we were being dragged through the mud with false information. So she called our office and said she was very sorry. She didn't mean to do it. She didn't know the full story. She would post a retraction, and that was, if you saw in that video, when you pull it up now, it says at the top that it's not factual.
All right.
And then she told me, she said, well, I didn't think it would cause any harm. I just put it on my on my Facebook page for all my friends to see. And I don't know, sometimes I'm not real nice, but I said, well, you need to really look at who your friends are, because they took that off of there and ran with it. It ended up with, there's a immigration PAC, APAC, or I'm not really sure the name of the group, but it was a conservative political action committee. They got a hold of it and they started posting it on all their conservative websites. I had a friend call me and said, hey, congratulations, you're on the Drudge Report or Drudge Report. I'm like, hey, great, I don't know what it is, but thank you for calling me. So anyway, it went viral, but after that happened Thursday, with her apology and then she started retracting it from her support group or whatever, then it immediately died down. But it was a stressful week. That was July the 13th, and y'all know what we're doing in July. We were really busy. This was something that we really didn't need to do that week. So anyway, that's basically our story. And one other thing too, news is only news until better news happens or more important news or whatever. But that was the week that the plane was shot down in Russia. So when that came out, that just really ended that discussion on our farm. But anyway.
Doug, did you, from what you've said, it sounds like, two things here. One is you've seen both the bad and the good of social media as a result of this. You got pulled into something as a result of social media, but you also were able to use social media to combat it. When you approached the media outlets, were they aware of it at all, or were you the first one to contact them?
We were the first ones to contact them. In fact, we probably did that on Tuesday, really before it went viral, just to let them know that it was coming out, and then they came out Wednesday. So they were not aware of it at that time.
That's one of the, whenever I talk with other groups or talk to our staff in the department about dealing with the news media, a lot of people, they'd rather have a root canal or 4 root canals. They would much rather go through that than talk to a reporter. But one of the things that stands out to me in this is, with Doug's experience, is in this case, the media were a valuable tool for Doug and his operation, because they helped him to combat incorrect information.
Added credibility.
And they did add credibility to it.
We needed instant credibility in the news, the local news and the newspaper. We felt like gave that to us.
The other thing too is he had the facts on his side. And in any kind of a crisis situation, accuracy is just extremely important. The facts are the facts. Now, people can always try to manipulate facts to suit themselves. We've seen it done many, many, many times. But accurate information is essential. And in this case, he had truth on his side. And the way that he approached it, to me, seemed like a wonderful way to tamp down what could have been a very explosive situation. We'll shift here momentarily over to Chris. You've seen one example of what can happen with farm labor and having a crisis. One coming from the social media side of things. Well, Chris has got a different experience. He had the regulators on the farm. So I'm going to pass the mic to him and let him tell you his story.
Yeah, we just sit down in front of you. It'll be good for everybody.
Well, I'm Chris Barnhill, 4th generation blueberry farmer in Bladen County. And my dad always said for what we go through today, he'd let the place grow up in pine trees and just hunt quail, because he's just so regulated now. And our first experience was with the NC Department of Labor, and Mr. Everett Puckett, which some of y'all may have known him when he was an investigator. Everett was looking at another commodity in our area, and they had a lot of housing violations and happened up on our farm because the other commodity and blueberries work hand in hand as far as seasonings. When they finish with them, they can come to us and then go back to them. So he followed some people to our farm and wanted to talk to some crew leaders, and we let him talk to whoever he wanted to. He said we could either do this like this, or I can go get a warrant, come back, and we'll do it that way. I said, no, go ahead, you talk to him. And in our progress of going around the farm to find this individual he was looking for, he kind of observed our toilets and our water coolers, and everything looked good. And he came by our trailers where we house our packing crews. At that time, we had some trailers for our packing crews. He said, well, have those been inspected? And me being an electrical contractor, I said, yeah, we inspect them, we put them in there. He said, no, has the Department of Labor inspect them? I said, not that I know of, because I had no knowledge. I just come back to the farm within the last 5 years. I had no knowledge of we had to have them inspected. He said, well, I know you didn't, because I would have been the one to inspect them for you. So he kind of tried to set me up on that one. So he came in, we started out, he gave us a few days to get straight. He wrote us up for $55,000 and left, and we, right in the middle of the busiest part of the season, always when this stuff happens, took off to Walmart, wherever we could go to get whatever we could get to get in compliance, put on handrails on steps, trash cans, first aid kits, stuff that, the little things. The houses themselves was not a problem. And he came back, and over a long period of time with Regina and Miss Berry and myself and Everett and everybody discussing, we got it down to $300 and paid it. So they worked with us on it, but we were not aware of anything. We were not aware that we had to do it. So I told them, they said, well, we sent out a mass mailer back in 19-something before I was ever around there. And Daddy said, well, I do remember seeing that letter, but we didn't have any migrant help then, so it didn't matter. Didn't have any migrant houses then. few years after that, I got the award for the most improved Gold Star grower in North Carolina. So I think we've turned it around. And our industry has done the same thing in housing, and we have some of the best housing in all the industry. We only house for 8 weeks out of the year. So it's an interesting way to spend money. So that one got behind us. We thought we were in the clear, everything's cool. I'm serving on the Ag Health and Safety Advisory Council, Miss Sherry Berry. I think, the world's good. I'm hearing everything up front. And the USDOL shows up. They want to inspect. And they're concerned more about the workers and the housing. And I told all my crew leaders, I said, y'all be sure there's no kids in the field. I've never had a problem with a kid in the field, but I think they're learning a good way to work. I mean, I was at 6 years old, I was driving tractors on the farm, and I've always made the joke, I'm going to dig Granddaddy up and sue him for working me so soon. But because if any of us grew up on a farm, when you could walk, you could be assistants, you were helping. So they go out there in the fields the next morning. In fact, I come through waking crews up and in the village, and they're sitting there waiting on us to go to the field. So they go to the field. One of the crew leaders told some of the people it didn't matter. Well, it did. 2 kids got in the field. The investigators found them. One kid would not cooperate. The other one did. They went back and estimated how much this child would have made if he had made minimum wage for working the number of hours he had said he'd work. We pay by the piece, pay by the bucket, now by the pound. The berries he had picked, that money he gave to his mom and dad. And he told the investigator, I gave that to my mom and dad. So they told me that I owed this boy money. So I said, well, before y'all leave, I want to pay this young man. So call him up. He said, oh, no, you can't pay him. You got to pay his mom and dad. I said, well, he's already given his money to his mom and dad. Now you want me to pay him? Well, you can't pay him. He's too young. So then the gentleman, his dad, didn't want to take the money because he said the Bible's taught him that the Lord will cost you 10 times what you steal, and that would be stealing money because he hadn't worked for it. So we asked him, would you please just take the money and do whatever you want with it afterwards. If you don't, we got to give it to the government, and I'd rather you have it. So after everybody left, he brought it back and gave it to me and told me, son, I didn't earn this money, it's not mine. So it worked out fine on that aspect of it. Our houses, we charge $20 per week per worker. That does not include, we furnish utilities, clean place to stay, beds, linens. They furnish their own pots and pans and food and such. And they said, being we didn't have that posted in the houses, which we do now, the rate of rent, even though it was in their employee documents, it was not posted in the houses. We had to return all the rents that we had collected. That was about $10,000, $12,000 that year. So a lot of those did the same thing. They refused the money. They said, we can't live without that place to stay. So we got past that one. I'm going to add one in on you, Debbie, talking about the workers and stuff. Had 2 workers, one of them got sick in the field. We had been on a rain delay that morning, so they're all out drinking these monster drinks, all these high caffeine drinks that ought to be illegal, and eating tacos. And this gentleman had, as we found out later, had just got out of the hospital with bleeding stomach ulcers. So these monster drinks went in there and caffeined him. He shot straight to the moon. He goes out, picks about that many blueberries, and falls out in the field. I think the man's having a heart attack. We got some nurses on site. We had first aid trained people. We got the ambulance there finally. We got him to Burgaw, over in Pender County, adjacent county. And later on that evening, this other gentleman was out playing soccer and had a seizure, not related to, but was similar in symptom. He went to the same hospital, and they called in emergency management, and they're getting ready to set up triage tents because they've got a mass pesticide poisoning on the blueberry farm. So I got Channel 6 News sitting at my door. I've got the NC Pesticide Division at my door. I've got emergency management, county health inspectors, state health inspectors on the phone for me. I've got them lined up, and I'm in my office seeing them one by one by one. And the media did us good in that instance. It was put out on TV, and everybody said that I come across concern for my workers, and I was. I mean, we can't do this without these people. I can't pick 300 acres of blueberries by myself. I can't do it. But these guys went to see them in the hospital. What they did, as soon as they got them to the hospital, they incubated them because they were combative, because they had nobody there to communicate with them. So they incubate them. So now they can't ask them what's wrong with them, what they did. So here I've got 2 guys in a coma down here in Wilmington. They done transport them down to ICU, and we don't know what's wrong with them. Like I said, the young gentleman, he had a seizure, found out later, had some brain problems, and they're working on him. And the old man was drunk, and he just got out of hospital with bleeding ulcers. And I hear after we paid him his money and everything, he went up to New Jersey and got drunk again. So I guess he's just doing what he wanted to do. Our fourth one, 2 USDOL inspectors show up on our farm. I'll need to check your records. I said, fine, come on. I think food safety with the people we market with has gotten us as ready for any of this stuff as anything we've done. We now do 8 different audits. Most of them are repetitive of others in order to be able to market our fruit with the different marketers we go with. They wanted to see the crew leaders. I said, Tony, would you get the crew leader book? They said, oh, a book. So, there's a book opened up, there's all their paperwork. Meanwhile, the gentleman goes outside, we're on rain delay again, and he's out there pitching quarters with the workers and losing. I didn't see him, but he told me he was losing so he could befriend them. He's eating tacos, having a good time. Girls checking all their paperwork. End of that day, we finally went to work. They went up and checked the houses. End of that day, they come by to see me. Everything okay? She said, no harm, no foul. I said, I need to sign anything, because with the government, you always sign something. No harm, no foul, and they left. I said, something ain't right here. Next day, they're back. They're all out in the field, they're going around again. We're working that day. I said, need to sign anything? No harm, no foul. They leave again. Next day, they show up with 4 people. And the 4th day they showed up with 4 people, they finally let me sign the paper, no harm, no foul. So we are in compliance. It's taken a lot of money, a lot of time, a lot of diligence, and extra people being hired just to do paperwork to stay in compliance. And it's a year-round thing to stay in compliance. Later on, I got a call from a supervisor. He said, Mr. Barnhill, I understand I had 2 of my agents out there on your property that were investigating your farm. I said, yes, ma'am. He says, are you aware or do you have knowledge of one of my agents was gambling? I said, ma'am, you'll have to elaborate on that one. I don't understand what you're talking about. She said, pitching quarters. I said, I did not observe the man doing it, but he told me he did it. She said, do you have a problem with that? I said, no, ma'am. If that's the way he wants to spend his money, it's his money. He wasn't spending mine. I said, I do have a problem with one thing, though. I said, the way your investigators treat me like I was guilty until they investigate me and make me innocent. And the way they were very evasive that they were coming back. That they led me to believe they were done with their investigation and they kept coming back. I said, these tactics are not good and y'all need to work on these tactics. I said, we're all out here trying to make a living and y'all need to help us all make a living. And if we're in compliance, then y'all need to let us know we're in compliance and move on and not be this way. She took heed of it. Now, how much good it did, I don't know. But that's all my stories.
I remember the issue with the 2 workers because my telephone rang that day too. We got calls at the department about that. Of course, the pesticides division was involved in investigating.
Let me add one to it. Sue Engelstein was the pesticide investigator. You know Sue, she's retired now. To show you how worried she was about it, she investigates us, checks our stuff about every year until she retired. She went out, took soil samples where the man got sick, leaf samples and fruit samples, got it all bagged up. And we're walking out, and she's eating fruit just as hard as she can eat it off the bush. So I said, Sue, you're really worried about my pesticides, aren't you? She said, no, you good, Chris. I know you are.
How are we doing on time?
You're fine.
I threw him off base. I'm sorry.
He was in a press release. USDOL issued a press release about the child workers in his field, and there was 2 blueberry farms mentioned in that press release.
Yep.
And that actually had residents on the internet. I haven't been able to find it in the past year or so. I don't know if it's just lost, but
Yeah, we lost it.
did you, did that have any repercussions?
Not really, not from the social media. I think at that time it wasn't as prevalent as it is now. You know, this has been about 6, 8 years ago. This social media really took off in the last 5 years.
That's true, that's true. Any questions for Chris? Or any for Doug?
I don't know if any of you've seen the video out on sweet potatoes and migrant laborers right now, but a person I know very well put that on his Facebook and said, made a comment, I found it and I just lost it, said, made a comment, do any of y'all want to do this work? And it was showing people picking up sweet potatoes. And one of the snotty comments from a woman that I know was, in America, we have machines that pick up sweet potatoes. And that's not necessarily right, that it is all done by machines. So Facebook does, I mean, maybe there are better ways to do it, but there's always these really nasty anti-immigration reform people that seem to think that all farming is done by our great John Deere machines that all have GPSs and there's no need for any labor at all. But that was just posted a week ago.
I have not seen that particular.
Brian, can you kind of bring to them something that they can start thinking about as they leave, if something like this occurred in their operation, such as Doug or such as Chris? 1 or 2 thoughts that they can start thinking about how they would kind of move into action and, you know, be ahead of the game versus kind of, you know, continue asking the questions, because that's where, you know, everybody kind of gets their feedback, there's personal experiences. But your takeaway from these 2 gentlemen sitting up there is similar in some aspects, that they were dealing with regular incidents on the operation or the social media. And we all know that social media is a part of our life.
You know, we also had social media with undercover video on the back farm with 2 HUA workers fighting it out. So, you know, it hits all across the board. There are agendas out there that with people that don't like what that you even use foreign workers. Biases against your operations. We're seeing it in hog farms, chicken farms.
Dairy farm operation
Dairy
up in
farms.
Haywood County.
So, Brian, you have all the answers.
And it's not just labor, it's PETA, I mean, animal activists, is just the whole gamut of social media and how it can impact your individual operation, and put a face out there that doesn't represent who you are, what you do, and what you provide to the state and to the nation. I think that's kind of the thought process.
And one of the sleeper issues that we've been working with behind the scenes and following are the licensing of drones. And what they can video and what they cannot video. So, I mean, with social media and everybody's got a camera on their phone, and we need to be ready for people making false accusations.
Yeah, I think something that Doug said, he spoke to the whole credibility issue, and also I would say that the other thing he talked about was they put a plan in place. They put together a plan for how to respond when the time was right. And I always try to remember
my days in the Boy Scouts, and be prepared. Because, and don't underestimate what the reaction may be. As Peter said, everybody's got a cell phone with a camera, it seems like, anymore. You can capture video, you can capture, still shots, and there are ways for people to immediately put that information out there without regard to what is true, what is accurate. So I guess I would encourage you to do two things. Be prepared. Don't underestimate that of what you may need to be prepared for. The other thing is do things the right way. As we've seen here, even when you do things the right way, you can find yourself in a sticky situation. Now imagine what kind of situation you're going to find yourself in if you don't do things the right way. We've seen examples within the industry of how one bad actor can color an entire sector of our industry. We all suffer when somebody doesn't do the right thing. I would urge you to keep that in mind. Something that one of my mentors in government public relations work years ago said, you can't make good PR from bad decisions. And that has stuck with me throughout my career, and it is true. It is time and time again. So that would be my piece of advice for you today.
Can I ask a clarifying question of Chris? Chris, you're one of the nicest people, and it seems like you're very open with your farm. Thank you for letting me bring so many people over as an example. And you've been, it seems, fairly open with the regulators. So do you have a checklist before you let the regulators go? Do you have someone from your staff accompanying them when they're on the farm, looking at what they need to do? Do you do that yourself? Do you have a plan, in other words?
Normally I hand it off to my man Tony. He's my right hand. He does all our food safety stuff and very familiar with what to say, not to say. Usually, and the reason I do that is I spent 20 some years of my life in electrical contracting. I have my own business, and I'm used to interpretation because all rules are up for interpretation. As was like, especially in electrical, you had an inspector. Everywhere you went, they had a different interpretation. And I've lost my patience for interpreters. So if it works better with him, he has good patience with them, he deals with them well, good PR guy, so I turn it over to him. Yes, we do have, you come in, you check in, you sign in, you get a visitor's badge, you're accompanied by someone from the farm the whole time you're there. There are no cameras, phones, anything allowed without permission. We have had instances of people taking pictures and going back, and this was my marketer. One of our food safety people went and took a picture of a leaking sprayer and then tried to cause a concern. And this was in the off season, and I had that taken care of. So you don't want anybody with any pictures on your farm. Don't allow. I've even told them that this guy, in fact, this one guy is banned from my farm. He's not allowed to ever come back on my farm. But be very diligent about it. They have to comply with what you say. They are there regulating, but they've got to be courteous and fair as you be courteous and fair. One point I was going to bring up on the United States High Bush North American Blueberry Council on our national, we are proactive on these problems. We have a lot of dark websites, and I'm sure you're probably familiar with a dark website that is sitting out there. And what that is, it's a website that's ready to go for whatever. We've got multiple ones that for whatever could be coming. E. coli, pesticide poison, whatever was to happen on a national level, that website just gets turned on. So it combats, it's automatic, you got something, and that's something that Farm Bureau may need to look into on these commodities to try to have dark websites sitting there ready to go. Our media people are very interested in what's happening with Doug here. We'll talk to him intensively and get, because the social media is another front that we're really working on. But yeah, you got to be diligent. Between food safety and these investigators, you've got to be diligent. You've got to have somebody there to take charge and let them go where they need to go. Don't let them go where they don't need to go. They're going to want to go everywhere.
Yeah, and Chris, you sort of said that, alluded to that earlier too. The food safety audits that we're going through has taught us a lot, and that was one part of our food safety audit is, do you have a regulatory visit procedure to go? So when those agencies come up, we pull the folder out of the book and say, okay, what's your name? What's your agency? I need to see your ID badge. You need to check in. No pictures will be taken. It's you go down a checklist, and that's and everybody's got it. So if I'm not there or my brother, then the office manager knows to pull that out and to get that started. And then at the bottom says, if Randall and Doug aren't there, call them immediately and get all this paperwork filled out and have them wait in the waiting area. So, it's and that came through our food safety audits. Mm-hmm. And I'd like to add one thing too. And I don't know, Twitter has gotten a lot of people in trouble. I don't know if y'all heard about Kurt Schilling. It's just on the news yesterday, but his daughter got a scholarship, and he played for the Red Sox, and I think some of the Yankee fans and whatever all started attacking his daughter on Twitter. And so he called them out and actually got a number of these people fired from their jobs. Whatever you put out there, you may have this Twitter name that's cute and creative, you can be found. Within 3 hours, we knew who this girl was, where she lived, if she was married or not. We had all the information on this girl because, if something happened and we need to take her to court, we were going to have all that. And I think that really scared her. I think she put that out there, and she started getting contacts from all over the country, tracking her down, trying to get her story. And then when they found out it was a false story, then she really got scared. So you got to be careful what you put out there. And that's why I said when we saw this, we sat down and wrote a response, and we put it aside. My initial response would have got me in a lot of trouble. Yeah, that's when I called my wife and I said, look, I'm really upset here. Let's sit down and talk about it. And of course, y'all know Randall. Randall gets really upset. So then we're like, let's get the PR firm involved, and we together wrote a concise, factual, non-emotional response and put it aside. And then the next morning we brought it back out and said, okay, is this still okay? Yeah, well, let's go with it. But, immediately you want to get on Twitter or Facebook and say, this lady's crazy and da-da-da. And before you know it, like I said, once it's out there, it's always out there. It doesn't come back down.
And one of the things I would add to that is I heard it on a great information source this morning, which is, of course, Sports Talk Radio. They were talking about the Kurt Schilling issue, and one of the hosts of the radio show said, something he tells his kids, because they're getting involved in Twitter and Instagram and whatnot, but it really is true for all of us. Don't put it out there unless you would want to read it on the front page of the New York Times. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that seems far-fetched, but it's not. Mm-hmm. It's not. So just something we all should keep in mind.
That's a great last word. So let's thank our panel.